Hello everybody and welcome back to Kerbal Space Program 2, where as you can see, I've gotten us back to where we were previously, just after detachment of these stages, but this engine survived. This took me probably 7 attempts. And I think the reason why this is happening is because the radial decouplers, the amount of force that they give relative to the amount of mass that the tanks are, is significantly different from KSP-1. KSP-1 gives more mass relative or rather more force relative to the tanks, so it pushes it out away from you more. And I think that change should be made to KSP-2. We'll see if it ever happens. That would make this a lot more reliable. But we managed to get to this point as of right now, and we can proceed to space. As you can see, our orbital velocity is a little higher too. I made a little bit more aggressive of a gravity turn on this attempt, and it worked. Barely. The SRBs almost destroyed at least 2 of our engines over here. But let's make our way into orbit. That'll be fine. So we should have the thrust to weight to make our way into orbit at this point. And as you can see, we've been there's been a lot of spin. I'm not sure why we've had a lot of rotational velocity, but we have. We absolutely have, and that's been happening ever since I started up the game. I might need a game restart. We'll see. But there's been a lot of rotation happening as of right now. Hopefully that stops and gets under control once we are up over here. But we should extend our solar panels. Not that we can make use of them just now. And we want to push that apoapsis up to probably around 150. Although we can see time to apoapsis is currently slowly going down. And that means that we need to continue our burn right now. Actually, it's kind of holding at this moment. Okay, it is slowly going down. That's good. Now, I want to move us over to be purely on the horizon here. About like that. Looks solid. Still holding at 214 to apoapsis. So this is indicative that we're burning at basically exactly the right time. And have basically the perfect thrust to weight to make this happen. Obviously, we know that if we don't have this Mammoth 2 engine, we don't have the thrust to weight. We're getting fairly close to orbital velocity, and we're just going to continue to push through there. We're currently at about 105 kilometers, and I'm just continuing to adjust our positioning a little bit, about like so. Looks reasonable. Time to apoapsis is going up. That's perfect. That's exactly what we want to see. That means that we now officially have the thrust to weight to get to orbit. As I thought, all we needed was for this engine to survive. So that looks good. Once we make it into orbit, the thrust to weight doesn't matter all that much. Wonderful. So we are going to definitely make it to orbit. We'll have a few hundred meters per second in this to do an inclination change to head out to Minmus, as well as having a little bit to push us over towards Minmus. Remember, we have no second stage in this. All we've got is our lifter and our lander. And that's fine. That's really all we end up needing. So let's just position ourselves right about here or so, and we're just pushing our apoapsis up to like 150, 148 right now. Actually, maybe we should go for like 200. Push out that periapsis, or rather push out that time to apoapsis a little bit further and get a little bit closer to orbital velocity. Yeah, I think that makes sense. That apoapsis is going to start going up very quickly now, and it's not going to be that much more dV. So it sounds good to me. But we are going to achieve orbital velocity here. Kind of barely, but we are going to achieve it. And that is all fine. So 167 right now for our apoapsis. And yeah, I'm just targeting 200 here. 175. And we're basically at orbital velocity at this point. So all is looking good there. 190. 195, and 200. Engine shut down. Okay, so at this point, we are kind of in orbit, but we need to get ourselves a little bit of velocity up at the apoapsis. And I want to move this back to about here or so, and we'll just circularize that on up. And it's going to look something like this. Okay, about 120 dV. 134. That'll do. So let's get aligned for that burn. That's going to take a hot minute. Actually, this turning isn't as bad as I expected it to be. Oh, we're trying to go this way. Okay, maybe it's pretty bad. Yeah, it's pretty bad. We're working on it. Okay, well, we've got 7 minutes to get this turn done. I'm not going to make you sit through the entire turn. We are working on it. The real question is, once we ditch this, how's our turning going to do here? Well, if we're just landing on Minmus, we don't actually need to do that much turning, in theory. And our gimbal will help a lot. So, let's just let this turn, and I will be back once we are closer to this burn or our target attitude. We'll see what happens first. See you guys in a moment. So here we are, almost turned, and we've still got almost 5 minutes. Look at that. Okay, so this turning is actually not so bad. Of course, once we ditch all of this mass here, it'll get a lot better, but it won't be amazing with our lander. So we'll have to keep that in mind as we're bringing our lander in, but we can just land on the Minmus flats. It really shouldn't matter. So that's absolutely wonderful. We're basically turned here, and I'm going to warp us forward as soon as we are a little bit more turned than we are right now. Just a little bit further. About now. Okay, so we're warping on over, and let's get ourselves into a proper orbit here. So about 30 seconds to go. 20, 10, and 3, 2, 1, mark. Excellent. So this is going to burn about half of our remaining fuel in this tank. And then we're going to have to do our inclination change. Actually, this is going to be slightly under half. The inclination change will likely get the rest of it dealt with. As in, we're going to have this burned out with the inclination change. Almost certainly. But let's see what that ends up looking like. So 180, 190, and this is good enough. Cool. Engine shut down, and now we need to set Minmus as our target. So let's hop on over this direction. I don't want the ComSat. I want Minmus as our target. And what do we need to do for an inclination change for that? Well, first off, we need to head back to Kerbal. There we go. And we can see 8 degrees. Okay. How much DV is that going to take? So that'll be right up over here in about 4 minutes. Noted. And 0.7... 0.6. This feels like we're going to have to change the timing. Yeah. So sometime around here or so. And then 296 meters per second. Okay, we'll align to that burn, but it's going to take us a while to get turned. Let's get working on that. See you guys closer to this burn time. So here we are making our way right on over for this inclination change. We're a little ways away on this turn, but we can see what our turn rate is looking like here. It is visually turning. We can see the turn happening, and that is magnificent. I'm very glad about that. It's going to be interesting landing this thing, no doubt about it. So we're going to need like 96 meters per second out of our lander for the inclination change. That does mean we'll have to burn some fuel from our lander to get to Minmus. But once we get there, our mass should still be over 200 tons, I think. I hope? I hope. If it isn't, problems would ensue, and we would need to have some sort of a second stage here, in which case achieving orbit is going to be a little bit more challenging, but we'll see. I mean, the second stage wouldn't have to be anything major. We could just have, like, one of these tanks and then one of these guys, or even just the tank. That's interesting. Because we have these exposed engines, we could have them act as our second stage engines. Well, let's see if that's even necessary. For now, we're going to warp forward this last minute or so, and I'm actually going to not auto-warp this. I'm going to manually warp it. 40 seconds, 30, 20, 10, and 4, 3, 2, 1, mark. So the majority of this burn is going to be done on our first stage here, but we're going to have to get a tiny little bit off of these engines, and that'll be fine. We've got lots of DV in this. I'm not worried about DV. The only thing I'm worried about is having the appropriate level of mass once we get there, right? We have to land and weigh over 200 tons in order to achieve the mission. So that is fine. We should be about 2/3 of the way through this burn once we run out of fuel, and that does appear to be approximately where we'll be. 10 meters per second left, and let's go. Fantastic. We appear to be slightly over gimbaled here. That's interesting. This moved on us. I wonder if that was somehow misaligned. If so, that would be a bug, but that would explain some things. Interesting. 2, 1, mark. I'm actually going to burn. Yeah, this is fine. Okay, what are we at? 0.1? Should be fine. So we want to go to Minmus, and we want to do it sometime around here-ish. It's going to be a prograde burn. That's way more burn than we want. And we want to bring this back around. Okay, that's way too little burn. And we want to just try to have it be somewhere up here. Where's our burn at now? Come here. Okay. This thing is going kind of haywire. But sure, that's actually an encounter. And let's take a look at that encounter. I think that's reasonable. We don't really care too much about the inclination of it, right? So we can just bring this in a bit. Like this. Bring it down ever so slightly. That's technically a landing burn. Let's not necessarily do that. But I do want to bring in... Interesting movement there. Very interesting. I don't really want to be in a polar orbit, is the thing. So I'm just thinking somewhere around... here or so. That's better. 12-kilometer periapsis is pretty decent, actually. So let's just go into an orbit, something like that. That looks really, really good. Let's turn to that position, 848 meters per second to get there. But once we get there, it's going to be very little DV to do what we need to do. So we should be still pretty good there. In our engineer report, can we see in any of this what our current mass is? That'd be a useful thing to be able to see, of course. That's just our parts manager at this point. Yeah, I don't think we can see that, but we can see here that we have 344 tons of oxidizer alone. So for the moment, we're definitely well over that 200-ton mark. Looks like we're going to be, well, in total, hang on a moment. In total, how much do we have? We have 89.2 plus 356.8. Okay. So that's 446 tons in fuel alone. So we can burn half of our mass, or half of our fuel, and still qualify in fuel alone. let alone the weight of the engines, the weight of the landing legs, the weight of the dry mass tanks. We should be okay here. We should absolutely be okay. Let's warp forward. We're basically in position for this turn now. And we're going to burn this pretty accurately if we can. 20 seconds, 10, and 3, 2, 1, mark. So this is going to be roughly a 2-minute burn. Okay. I can see we're a little over gimbaled, as evidenced by the constant corrections happening here. So that is a little bit sad. But for the moment, I'm going to leave that be. Let's go through the majority of this burn, like this, freezing the gimbal in place. 120, 110, 1 minute, 50, 40, 30, 20. Okay. Now, we're going to head over to the Minmus SOI. Because, of course, we want to hit this pretty accurately. So we've got about 10 seconds. Well, these are long seconds. 12, 11, 10, 9, 8. Yeah, these are some very long seconds indeed. Well, we've got about 7 seconds of burn time left in theory here. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, mark. Okay, I'm going to continue to burn us a little bit here. Ooh, that was very sensitive. Okay, we're going to need to bring this around to retrograde. And I think we should thrust limit our engines as well. So while we're turning, I'm going to thrust limit these down to 1% thrust. Okay. There we go. So we do have a Minmus encounter here. It's not the Minmus encounter I wanted. It was very, very, very rapid. No doubt about that. But we're just going to bring this on over. And we're angling for a very similar periapsis to this. 12 kilometers is pretty decent. So that should be absolutely fine. We are turning at an appreciable rate. This is not too bad as far as turn speed goes. But it is a little slow. Not gonna lie about that. Okay, so we're basically wanting to go, I think, really anti-target, but it's kind of the same thing. It's kind of the same thing. So let's bring this on around. We need to be curving this over into going down. We're overshooting on this side, but we're still heading in approximately the right direction-ish. Let's freeze the physics and get moving in the correct direction again. Okay. There we go. Now we're turning. Cool. I'm going to do a very small burn here and just keep an eye on what we're doing. Okay. So let's bring this on back. This is much more manageable at this point. So just flip it on over. That's good enough. 15 kilometers will do. We're in a bit of an awkward orbit here. I don't love the actual inclination of it, but it doesn't really matter that much. So let's bring ourselves up over this way. We want to come in about here. So we'll time warp there. Excellent. And now we want to time warp to here. This is going to bring us within Minmus. And we're going to be doing a bit of a flyby, but you can see by the curvature here that we're not going too fast. It's not going to be the slowest thing in the world, but it'll do. This isn't the most perfect encounter we've ever had. That's for sure. But it'll work. So let's just get ourselves into here. We'll create a maneuver plan, and we're just going to bring ourselves into a circularized orbit. So we are definitely going to... oh, this is massively overshooting, I think. Yeah, it was. It definitely was massively overshooting. So we're going to need to time this a little bit differently. This is a 33-minute burn to do 163 meters per second. Right, we're thrust limited. We should unthrust limit. That will help matters. Okay. Let's update our maneuver a little bit. There we go. That's a little bit better. We'll put this right over at that periapsis, and this is almost entirely a circularization, but it's a little overshooty. So we'll just bring this back, not quite that way. We'll bring it back this way. Yeah, this is much more like it. That'll do. I don't love the inclination, but it's fine. So we'll align to that burn, and the question is, oh, that's right over here. That's not going to take long at all. So we're just going to drop down to Minmus. We are moving a little bit quickly in this orbital velocity, but it's only 161 meters per second. So this won't be too bad. We're definitely going to be weighing over 200 tons by the time we land on Minmus. I can tell you that right now. I'm a little more concerned for the other one, but that one only has to be 100 tons. But we should still probably have a second stage for that. So, let's fall on down towards Minmus. We are very slowly accelerating. Okay. So, now we need to, of course, warp ourselves forward a little bit. 20 seconds. 10, and 2, 1, mark. Okay, let's get this braking burn done. Beautiful. And then, of course, we're just going to go for a landing. And this is a decent time to do a landing right up over here. We'll have to do an orbit, but that's probably not the worst thing in the world. Okay, so we are now in orbit and continuing to shave off some of this speed. About 2 seconds left on this burn. Little further. That'll do. Okay, so next what I want to do is I want to... Which way are we going? Are we going this way? That's in 42 minutes. Yeah, we're definitely going this way. That's fine. That's the way I thought we were going. So I want to create a maneuver plan here, and we're going to do a retrograde burn, and we're just going to look to slightly overshoot the flats here. Let's warp around to that and see what happens to the flats as we warp. 100x is the fastest we can warp here, unfortunately. But it looks like we're going to be pretty much over this section of flats, which is phenomenal. I really like that. We've got about 20 more minutes on this warp. And here we come. We should cancel this warp. You might ask why. We're not in position for the burn. We've got 11 minutes here, and we don't have any light. So that's exciting, but we will be absolutely fine. It's very, very dark. It's very hard to see where exactly we are. Again, I wish that we could physics warp turns like we can in KSP1. It would be very nice if we could do that. And actually, we should probably do this crew observation. That'll be okay. But all we need to do is make our way over to here. And we've got lots of time to do it in. We'll be coming into the light fairly soon as well. So we should have light reasonably soon, but we definitely can't see that yet. Yeah, it'll be a little bit, but that's fine. We'll warp forward as soon as we're fairly close to position here. Let's go ahead and do it now. We're only warping forward at 4x. Oh, okay. Sure. Well, let's cancel that warp for the moment and continue our turn, I guess. 4x is not fantastic. Indeed. And I will be back once we are a little bit closer to this burn. 4x is going to be a little painful, so I'll cut this out. Okay, so here we are, just about completed with our warp, and let's get this landing burn done. This is going to be a 2-second burn, by the way. And all we're trying to do is get ourselves over the flats here, and then we'll just kill our horizontal velocity and just go straight down. That's pretty much the goal here. We're about 10 kilometers up right now, and really we don't even need this maneuver node. Let's just get ourselves into position until we're over around here. So we'll just continue to head forward in warp. And I want us to be... Actually, let's not be in warp for the moment. Let's just position right on this retrograde marker. And we're going to get rid of our horizontal speed. But I just wanted to reposition ourselves real quick here. Okay. Now we'll warp forward a little bit further. And this is a reasonable place to put down, I think. Yeah, this seems good. So let's just commence this burn. But I'm going to put us on stability mode, not on retrograde, because the retrograde marker is going... Ooh. Okay. Let's just position right up over here. It does not want to stay put. Noted. Okay. I'm just watching this. We should be in surface mode right now. Oh, wow. Orbital and surface velocities are that different? Interesting. Well, let's move over into the surface position then. And we just want to make our way on down, right? So at this point, we can see that our projection is showing, yes, we will indeed land in the flats. So that's all looking good. I want to move ourselves to this retrograde marker, which apparently is significantly off of our orbital marker. That's very interesting. I'm also going to extend our landing legs, since we are on final approach. First time we're using these big ol' landing legs. And they should do absolutely fine. So we're just going to slowly accelerate towards this surface, right? And what I really want to do here is I want to bring us over this direction and park us at about a 45-degree angle. Right about here. Commencing a bit of a burn. There we go. That gets rid of the vast majority of our horizontal velocity. It does a little bit to our vertical velocity as well, but let's just freeze those physics, make our way back to the retrograde node. And we're just going to need to bring this on down. Okay, so we're turning back to the retrograde node. We should have absolutely no turning issues. We're still about 10 kilometers up, and we should warp down a ways. The question is, how far should we warp down? Well, I'm thinking about here or so. Maybe even a little further. Maybe like here. That's almost 2 minutes. Okay. I'm just letting us finish our turn before the warp because that may be very, very necessary. We're only at 20 meters per second right now, right? So we're not falling very quickly, and I definitely do want to warp forward some amount here. Just letting us position. Almost angled. Almost there. Okay, this is probably good enough. So we're going to warp forward a little ways here. We're auto-warping. And that's going to bring us down quite a ways. Of course, 4x is the best we can do on this auto-warp. We do have some horizontal speed here. I'm really not too concerned about it. And this looks pretty decent. As far as our mass, we've definitely got over 200 tons on this. So that looks good. Time warp limited due to proximity to celestial body. Okay, so we apparently can no longer warp. No, it just ended the warp. Okay. Well, we should probably do a braking burn sometime around... I'm thinking maybe like 3 kilometers. So we're 5 kilometers up right now. Make that 4 kilometers up. And the frame rate tanked, and we're going to be at about 3 kilometers up now. Okay, commencing a braking burn just to feel out how that's going to end up looking. Okay, I'm going to take it down to 40 meters per second. We're definitely burning too early here. So we're going to bring this down to around 1 kilometer at this point. So we're 2 kilometers up now. 1.7, 1.6, 1.5, 1.4, 1.3, 1.2, 1.1, and 1 kilometer. Okay. Commencing a braking burn, and I'm going to take us down to somewhere around 20 meters per second for now. I'm wondering if we're coming down right on the one bumpy portion in this area. It kind of looks like it. Be mildly awkward. But it should be okay. Our legs are very wide, and we don't have much verticality to this lander. So we shouldn't have any tipping issues. Okay, I'm going to start a relatively slow deceleration, bringing us down to 20 meters per second. And 15 meters per second, bringing us down to about 10 meters per second. Cool. I'm turning this down to about 10% thrust. Okay, a little lower. 6% thrust. That's a very, very gentle deceleration. And yeah, we're coming down on like the one bumpy portion here. So I'd like to land more like here. Unfortunately for us, we can't really turn this. So I'm just hoping that this isn't too bad. And I don't think it will be. There'll be a little bit of bump here, but it should be okay, relatively speaking. So we're moving at about 6 meters per second right now, 100 meters off the ground. We can see our shadow right up over here. Yeah, looking at our actual position here, I think this will be okay. We're moving at about 4.5 meters per second, 50 meters off the ground. We can see we're kicking up regolith at this point. 4 meters per second. Three meters per second. 2 meters per second. 1 meter per second. Okay. It's not all that bumpy. It looked a lot bumpier than this, to be honest. But it looks good. So, we're kind of having a hard time landing here. I think our legs are kicking back with a little bit too much power, but we appear to be starting to settle in now. Maybe. Maybe. Minmus doesn't have much gravity, but that's fine. It is time to put a cut in here, so I'm going to go ahead and do that, and next episode, we're going to do whatever science we can here, complete our mission, and we're going to head back to Kerbal. This is another one scratched off the list. You can leave your offerings to the engagement gods in the form of likes, comments, subscribes, and bell ringings, and a very special thank you to all of the channel members for making this video possible, including ALS Gamer, Atala, Andy McGar, Ali Lee, Dark Horse, Upper Cumberland Gamers, Nick Smarty, Dimitri H, Punching the Microphone, Tommy Kentogan, and all the rest. And of course, you. Thank you for watching. If you'd like to support the channel, you can click the join button down below the video, and as always, I will see you all next time.